Before we begin, if you're planning to walk through a forest alone anytime soon, you might want to reconsider. Because in the deep woods of Eastern Europe, there's something waiting, something older than Christianity, older than written history. The Slavic people have known about it for thousands of years, and they've learned one simple rule. The forest is not yours, it belongs to him, the Leshyi. And if you disrespect his domain, you may never find your way out. This is not a legend meant to scare children. This is a warning that has kept people alive for centuries. So turn off your lights and listen carefully, because what you're about to hear might just save your life. Origin and appearance. The Leshy. In Russian, it means he who belongs to the forest. In Polish, they call him Baruta. In Czech, Lesny Pan, the forest lord. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is that across every Slavic nation, from the frozen forests of Siberia to the Carpathian Mountains, people have seen him, feared him, respected him. He is not a ghost. He is not a demon. The Leshyi is something far more primal, a guardian spirit, protector of the wild places, a force of nature given consciousness and intent. But here's what makes the Leshyi truly terrifying. You never know what he looks like, because he is a shapeshifter, a master of disguise, who can become anything the forest offers. Sometimes travelers report seeing a tall man, impossibly tall, towering above the trees themselves, with a long beard made of moss and lichen, eyes that glow like a wolf's in the darkness, and skin like bark. His hair is a tangle of leaves and twigs. He wears peasant clothing, but it's always wrong somehow. Buttoned backwards, worn inside out, left boot on the right foot. But that's only when he wants to be seen as himself. Other times he appears as a lost villager, calling for help deep in the woods. An old friend you haven't seen in years, waving at you from between the trees. A beautiful woman, injured and afraid, begging you to come closer. He can mimic voices perfectly. Your mother calling your name, your child crying in the distance, your dog barking just beyond the next hill. The Leshyi can shrink down to the size of a blade of grass, hiding in plain sight. Or he can grow so massive that his head brushes the clouds, his footsteps shaking the earth. He can become a bear, a wolf, an owl. He can turn into a tree stump, a pile of leaves, a shadow that moves when it shouldn't, and the forest obeys him. Tree bend at his command, paths disappear, compasses spin uselessly. The sun seems to set in the wrong direction. Time itself becomes fluid. What feels like an hour might be a whole day, or 3 days might pass in what seems like minutes. The old people say the Leshyi has no shadow, that animals fall silent when he's near, that the wind stops and the temperature drops and you feel it in your bones. That primal instinct screaming at you that you're being watched by something powerful, something ancient, something that does not think like you do, the encounter. Let me tell you about Dmitry. This happened in 1987 in a small village near Kostroma, Russia. Dmitry was a hunter, experienced, confident, someone who'd spent his entire life in the woods. He knew every trail, every landmark, every trick the forest could play on a man's mind. One October afternoon, Dmitry went hunting for elk. The weather was clear. He told his wife he'd be back before dark. He took his rifle, his compass, his knife, everything he needed. 4 days later, he stumbled out of the forest, 15 miles from where he'd entered. His rifle was gone, his boots were on the wrong feet, and he couldn't stop shaking. This is what he told the village elder. He'd been tracking an elk for about 2 hours when he heard it, a child crying, deep in the forest, far from any village. His first thought was that someone's kid had gotten lost, so he followed the sound. The crying led him deeper and deeper into the woods, always just ahead, always just out of sight. Then he realized the sun hadn't moved. It was stuck in the same position in the sky, even though he'd been walking for what felt like hours. His compass was spinning. And the trees were different, twisted, wrong. Species that didn't grow in that region, all mixed together. The crying stopped, and then he heard his wife's voice calling his name. Dmitry, Dmitry, where are you? I'm lost. Please help me. But Dmitry's wife was home. He knew that, and yet the voice was perfect. every inflection, every tone exactly right. That's when he saw him. Standing between two birch trees was a man, tall, impossibly tall, with eyes that reflected the light like an animal's. He was dressed in Dimitri's father's old coat. His father had been dead for 10 years. The man smiled, and his teeth were too sharp, too many. You've come so far into my forest, Dimitri, the man said in a voice like wind through dead leaves. Why don't you stay? Your wife is here. Your father is here. Everyone you've ever lost is here waiting for you. The trees began to move, closing in. The sky darkened even though the sun hadn't set. Dimitri could hear voices now, dozens of them, all calling his name, begging him to come deeper, to stay forever. He ran blindly, crashing through undergrowth, falling, getting up, running again. The forest fought him. Branches grabbed at his clothes, roots appeared out of nowhere to trip him. The ground itself seemed to tilt and shift. He could hear laughter behind him, all around him, inside his own head. He dropped his rifle. He tore off his boots because they felt wrong, felt like they were pulling him backward, and put them back on without looking. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave out. And then suddenly he was at the forest edge, the normal forest. He could see the road in the distance. Behind him, deep in the trees, he heard that voice one last time. You may leave, this time, but you've seen me now, Dimitri, and I never forget a face. Dimitri never hunted again. He wouldn't even walk past the forest edge. And 3 years later, he disappeared. His wife said he'd gone to the market in the next village. They found his cart on the road. The horse still in its harness, calmly grazing. But Dimitri was gone. There were footprints leading into the forest. They started out as boot prints, but halfway to the tree line they changed, became something else, something with claws. They never found his body. How to survive, so how do you survive an encounter with the Leshyi? First, understand this, the Leshyi is not evil. He is territorial. He protects the forest and the animals within it. If you respect his domain, he may leave you alone. If you don't, well, you've heard what can happen. Here's what the old folklore tells us. Before entering the forest, ask permission. Out loud. Leshy Forest Lord, I ask to pass through your domain. I mean no harm. It sounds crazy, but this is a ritual that's kept people safe for generations. Never whistle in the forest. Whistling is how you call the Leshyi's attention. And trust me, you don't want that. If you get lost and you suspect the Leshyi is playing with you, immediately take off your clothes and put them back on inside out. Put your left boot on your right foot and your right boot on your left foot. This confuses him, breaks his magic. The forest should return to normal. Never follow voices calling your name, especially if they sound like loved ones. The Leshyi is a master mimic. If you hear your name called 3 times and you answer 3 times, you give him power over you. Don't take anything from the forest without asking. No mushrooms, no berries, no firewood. Say out loud, Leshyi, I take only what I need and I thank you for it. If you see him, do not run. Do not look directly into his eyes. Bow your head, back away slowly and say, forgive me, Forest Lord, I am leaving. Then turn around calmly and walk away. Don't look back, no matter what you hear. Leave an offering, bread, salt, tobacco, or vodka placed at the base of an old tree. This shows respect. And finally, the most important rule, never enter the forest on certain days. The Leshyi is most active during the equinoxes, especially the autumn equinox. On October 4th, according to the old calendar, the Leshyi goes into hibernation. But on that day, he's at his most dangerous, raging through the forest one last time before winter. Closing. The Leshyi is still out there, in Russia, in Poland, in Ukraine. In every place where old forests still stand, people still report strange encounters. Hikers who get lost for days in forests that are only a few miles across. Hunters who hear their names called by voices that sound exactly like their families. Trees that seem to move when you're not looking. Modern people dismiss these stories as superstition, But the villagers who live near these forests, they know better. They still leave offerings. They still ask permission. They still teach their children the old rules. Because the forest is not ours. It never was. We are guests in his domain. So the next time you walk through deep woods and you feel that prickling on the back of your neck, that sense that you're being watched by something vast and ancient, maybe show a little respect. Say a quiet thank you to the forest lord. Because the Leshyi is listening. He's always listening. And if you hear your name called from deep in the trees, don't answer. End. If you enjoyed this journey into Slavic folklore, subscribe for more stories from the dark corners of world mythology. And remember, respect the forest. Your life might depend on it.